can you kind of draw a solid picture for us about what is that thought process? What is the lens through which these people are viewing the world? Because like it's completely foreign to me. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
I can't even
Let's
imagine it. So help me with that.
yeah. Well, I mean, I'm certainly no expert, right? I'm just
You
my
know way
opinion
more than
about
me.
it,
I'm 100% sure about that. That's
right?
the only reason I'm asking you.
Yeah. I just wanted to just clarify that I know that about myself. um, and so this is just all anecdotal
That's fine,
uh,
brother.
stuff. But my sense is that um, that it goes back to that idea of kind of meritocracy and and hierarchy. And so this idea that like, okay, if you it like for example, the way they think about um, trans people, so they'd say in that culture, they go, okay, well, being trans a is bad, and they would say it's bad because they might give a moral thing, they might give a religious thing, they might just say, well, it's because they can't, it's now they're not having children, and or now they're right, but a big part of that is it's it's messing with the structure, right? Because they go like, these are men, these are women, this is how men react, this is how women act, this is how, right? And it's similar to with races, right? They'd say this is what white people are like, this is what black people are like, this is what Asians are like. And so everything's got to be in its follow the rules of how things should happen. And because this whole idea of natural consequences is so absolutely critical, meaning if they're in mind, like they're like, well, if this person is not suffering, or and it's a combination because it's both natural consequences and it's hierarchical kind of punishment oriented, right? So you're like, if you don't do what you're supposed to do, A, we have to punish you, and B, you're going to have to suffer the natural consequences. And in a way, that punishment is also kind of a natural consequence, right? And so um and for them, they're like, if you don't have the punishment or the natural consequences of your whatever your decision you made or what you're doing, then that's going to completely uh, result in the society falling apart because it doesn't the correct incentives, the correct structure is not in place for it to function. And so with a lot of that gets back to a lot of the stuff with like white supremacy. But like in your case, when you were talking about like, oh, these people were saying like, how you must have gotten affirmative action, like, and there's only two black kids in the class, right? Well, that's clearly that there's in their mind they're like, yeah, because black people obviously aren't can't compete, or obviously are not have the ability to do academically
That's
well, right?
exactly the implication. Yeah.
And so because they're like, and then but if you actually dig in further, and it's weird too because this is where you get this really tricky thing with biological essentialism and moral judgment, because what they'll say is, well, it's because you or your parents or your community is doing the wrong thing. You didn't work hard enough. You didn't have the right values. You didn't have the right culture. You didn't value the right things. You didn't get punished like you should. In fact, a lot of them will say, they'll go like, "Oh, see, the Democrats are actually screwing up the black community. Why? Because they're not allowing the correct punishment and natural consequences, right?" And so, because of that, it the intersection of kind of their racial stereotypes and their racial assumptions about things, many of which, interestingly, I mean, obviously, it was at one point shaped by post-slavery in the South and agricultural, but then later on with the rapid deindustrialization of the cities and the absolute economic, like, terrible hardship that happened for the people who worked in like steel industries and auto industries and so forth, which were a lot of African Americans that had moved from these repressive southern states to places where there was economic opportunity, but then got fucked by offshoring. And and so they look at that and they go, oh, look at that. They don't go like, oh, that's deindustrialization. They go, oh, yeah, that's black people just
doing that black people thing,
being inferior.
failing again, just
right?
where they belong, right at the bottom.
That's right. And right. Well, and right. That's not only like, yeah. So, and that just plays back into like a self-referential kind of way that you want to convince yourself, because you're like, well, you know, it's kind of like in India with like untouchables. It's like, there's a whole lot of psychology that goes into the upper caste going like, well, this is fine. It's so cool. You know, they deserve it or whatever. Right. And so it's, you know, and human beings kind of tend to do that.
Well, I mean,
unfortunately.
Okay. Thanks for watching. For access to the full-length conversation and all of the 2-hour-long unedited conversations that I've had on race, click the support link in the description below. Thanks for your support, and see you next time.